So I read 93 books in 2024, and that's a lot of books. So I decided I'll tier rank them by the Vine vibes I accumulate from these books through the entire year. So, real quick, I'm going to get into the tiers, then we'll get into the books. I'm not going to go super in depth explaining my feelings about the books or what the books were about. Um, because I don't want to keep this video super long. I tried recording it and it was over an hour. So we're just gonna blast through that baby right there. Starting from the bottom and working our way up. I wish I was Jared 19 and never learned how to read so I wouldn't have to be subjected to the bottom worst books. Next up, a little better but not by much, So No Head. I was disappointed and did not receive, in fact, any head from reading these books. Next, I was disappointed, but it was a book. I read it, and it was an avocado. Thanks. Next up,
Look, it's
The
the
Good
good
Kush.
Kush.
It's the dollar store. How good could it be? Truly. Higher side of 3 stars, yeah, move on with my life. I didn't hate it. Next up, it's freaking bats, and I love bats. So those were good. Those were great. 4 stars, maybe, perhaps, decent time, good time. Um, yeah, didn't change my life, but God and anime on my side did change my life. They changed my brain chemistry, and I recommend them to everyone. So let's get into it. Again, I won't go super in depth. So I just drank a bunch of coffee, so let's go into it. Okay, so first up, we have the Assassin's Creed comic for Black Flag. I'm not a Black Flag girly. I am an Assassin's Creed girly. I remember walking away going, that was a book, that was a comic. It didn't go in depth. If I hadn't played the game, I wouldn't have known what was going on. So it was an avocado. Thanks. Next up, I read multiple Murderbot books. I only have 2 on here for some reason. They're both audiobooks. If you like sci-fi, well, yeah, if you like sci-fi and you want to have a good time, these books are good. It's a robot who is a bodyguard bot, but he just wants to watch Phineas and Ferb, and frankly, I support that decision. It's a good time. Listen to the full cast audiobooks. Chef's kiss. Next book, Bakers and Magic. Cozy fantasy meets baking competition, Great British Bake Off. I read it last year, first book. At a cabin. The vibes were fun. I did want to bake after it. It did not change my life. I didn't hate it. I know someone who hated it. It was alright. It was decent. What can I say? Beauty and the Blade is a book I got for free on my Kindle, not just from KU, and surprisingly, I liked it. It is Victorian fantasy with gangs, a retelling of Beauty and Beast, I think, and it was a good time. I thought it was fun. If you like Victorian gaslight fantasy, you'll probably enjoy it. One of the better retellings of a fantasy I've read. Next up are Behind the Net and The Fake Out, 2 hockey romances. I'm a hockey girly. Um, Maybe not a contemporary romance girly. Behind the Net was an avocado, thanks, and The Fake Out was the good kush. I liked Fake Out more. I liked that sister more. I liked the male main character more. And like the motives actually made sense in The Fake Out, not so much in Behind the Net. Also, have you ever met someone who plays hockey? They do not behave like this, I promise. Next up, Bride. I think everyone read Bride this year. It was a good time. Vampires, werewolves. Who doesn't love that? It's my first Allie Hazelwood book. I know, I know. Don't come at me. It was a good time. You know what? I had a decent time. It was good kush, a good time. I read Christmas in Quincy around Christmas time, go figure. I remember nothing about it. It was an avocado. Um, Poor rich girl was like, oh, it's such a bad thing being rich. I hate it. In 2024, Miss Ma'am. Okay. All right. Next up, we've got Clean Sweep by Alona Andrews. I read the audiobook. It was a good time. Please do that. I love Alonia Andrews. They're probably my favorite married couple, aside from myself, of course. I am a married couple. So, good time, great time. I loved it. Right behind that, we'll just follow that up real strong with Clean Sweep. The comic, I have trouble imagining all of Andrews's like stuff, and the comic did a really good job of helping me tie in and imagine other things. So, stellar job, good time, please read it. Oh, I read so many books, I'm going to die. Ooh. Dread Nation, really good. Civil War, zombies, discusses racism. In terms of zombie books, it was really good. It was YA, so it was a little. I will be reading the second book in the duology this year. It was a good time. If you like zombies, it's a good time. If you need to get more like black and colored authors in, it's a good time. So do yourself a favor, pick it up. I had nightmares. Apple ciders and subterfuge. Fall vibes, FBI couple fake married to track down the mafia guy next door. It was all right. I remember nothing. It was like 80 pages, so eh. The Horror, I read this for Weirdo Book Club's October book. A horror book, has some really good discussions of like classism and stuff. It wasn't great, but it was a fun time. It was all right. I remember nothing. I feel so bad putting indie books down here. Faun on Me. Um, it's like a fantasy camp, but there's also a lot of discussion of like Republicans. Um, it was all right. Fantasy racism. It was okay for what it was. If you want to read a fun camp book about camps with fawns and humans, and also about Republicans, you might like it. I don't know. Disclaimer, the author is not a Republican. They're talking about how bad it is. So, good times. Next up is Fawn on Me, Fawn over Me. Um, it was all right. I feel bad about putting indie books down here. Oh my gosh. It was okay. I don't remember much about it. It had some discussion of like racism and it was allegorical kind of. Um, and girl comes from conservative family, finds out she's a lesbian and marries a half goat. Like, good time. Wish it had been better. Next up, Halfling by S.A. Wendell. No words. Don't judge me. I'm a monster lover. Cuff me. It was what it was. Arrest me, officer. I had a good time with this. Same goes for Heartsong. Gargoyles. I have no words. No one look at me. Ah. At First Bite by Olivia Dade. I don't like contemporary romance. This was a fun time. I loved the Spite House. I loved the setting. I loved the male main character, and I loved how they're like both at least in their 30s. Good time. I had a great time with that one. God Killer is, I think, a really good fantasy. I loved the world building. I loved the description of the gods. It's a good time. Like, do yourself a favor, read it. It's good. I know it's a trilogy. I have not read the other books. It's a good time. Ironling by S.C. Wendell. I think I enjoyed it more than Halfling. So I'm going to put it up here. It had the noble lady and the blacksmith kind of thing. Be warned, the books by S.C. Wendell are all like for adults. So, do research before you read these books. I am not saying everyone should read them. Please be aware of the ratings and look up the audience they are aimed at. We have A Breath of Fresh Air by Allegra Hall. It's like a werewolf book. It follows the mom who of the main character in one of these other books that I'll mention. Both of them are like in their 40s. It's a good time. If you want some like older adult people in your romance and are tired of like all the boring miscommunication, there was a third act breakup. Still a good time. It's a novella. Good read, quick read, good time. Nightmaster by Anna Hackett. I remember almost nothing about this. Kinda shrugged. The world feels a lot like Star Wars and Star Trek. It's really hard to get an original sci fi world, I'm noticing, that doesn't feel like one that already exists. It's a time. If you just want a quick sci fi novella romance, sure. The Broken Wings duology by Essie Wendell. I think these are some of my favorite books by her. I have almost all of her books. Um, these are good. Follow a really good world building. I think it takes place in the same universe as like Hefling and Ironling and stuff. No promises there. I enjoyed them. I had a good time. A lot of people are ranting and raving about Halfling. I think if you want to dip your toes in romantasy or try it or find like some good ones that didn't make me die immensely inside, these were pretty good. Good time, good read. Also great writing. Howl's Moving Castle, my older sister recommended this to me. I remember nothing. I remember kind of going, it's pretty good, but the movie was better. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just not for me. Maybe it's because it's like a book written for kids or teenagers. I just couldn't get as into it. Um, eh. We also have The Little Prince, but it's in French. Um, I really just read this to see where I was in my French. Um, I listened to the audiobook. It's good. It's in French. I listened to it to keep up. You know, basically, I have nothing more to offer to the conversation around it. The Librarian of Souls is a paranormal romance about the boogeyman. I expected to hate it. I had a good time. It has some great, what is it, gender queer representation. I think it did a pretty good job. Out of all the books I read that were queer, this one I think did decently. So it was a good time. It is very, so like look out for that. By that I mean it's adult. When I do this, assume it's like an adult book. Dark Archives. I listened to the audiobook. Stellar. It's about books bound in human skin and a woman researching them. It goes into conversations about book banning and the people who own these books and the people who had the skin that these books are now bound in. I cried. I laughed. I had a good time. Read it. Honeybloods is about two young girls. One of them gets turned into a vampire. It's the perky cheerleader girl that gets turned, which I did appreciate. It was okay. I remember next to nothing about it. So it's gonna go in It's an Avocado because it wasn't memorable, and it's disappointing because I like vampire books. So I want them to be memorable. However, they're both teenagers, so they have like teenager miscommunication, drama, stuff like that that I couldn't get into. So eh. The vampires were pretty cool. I did appreciate what the author brought to the table in terms of like new vampire stuff and vampire tastes. It's a good time. Also, lesbians? Question mark.
I thought you were American.
Love versus the ooze monster. It was kitschy. It was fun. The author didn't take it seriously. It's like, oh my god, Johnny, did you see? There's an eldritch horror outside. It's 1920s prohibition gangsters fighting off eldritch ooze monsters, and I, for one, am here for it. Nocturne. Sorry, I have nothing more to say. It was flowery, but not in a good way. In the way that it's like, take me seriously. Um, it was like there were so many personifications. The author tried to make it deeper than it was. At least that's what I got. Maybe I'm just not good at reading. Maybe I don't understand words and deeper meaning. So, eh. Next up, Lady Killers. I'm very harsh on true crime because I feel like they glorify and sensationalize criminals and the crimes they commit, especially serial killers. This book did not. The author did a really good job discussing the criminals, the victims, the socioeconomic conditions. I think it was a good time, and she discusses a rare part of serial killers and criminals we don't see, which are female serial killers. She's empathetic, but also holds them accountable and is like, they're still murderers. It's a good time. Once Charmed, Twice Cursed was kind of like pitched to me as Princess Bride, but everyone is given like luck magic. This book gave me no head. How dare you compare yourself to an immensely superior movie than the book you wrote? I'm being too harsh. No, it's gonna stay. I don't have anything else there right now. It's gonna stay where it is. That was too mean. I'm gonna, you know what? It wasn't bad. Maybe you'll like it. I'm too soft on books. I am. I just mm. Forbidden Brides by Neil Gaiman. To be fair, I read this before all the stuff about Neil Gaiman being weird came out, and weird is putting it nicely. So it's an avocado. It's like 40 pages. I read the back and got the entire plot. I'm not gonna go into it too much. If you still like Neil Gaiman, maybe it's fun. I'm not going to read another Neil Gaiman book. Sorry. Love versus the Beast. Same person who wrote Love versus the Ooze Monster. It wasn't bad. It's Revolutionary War, paranormal monsters. Same vibes. I liked it less. I liked it less than Love versus the Ooze Monster. We do get a demisexual guy and a pansexual woman, which is fun and a good time. Um, I don't really have much to say. It felt like it took itself a little more seriously. I cringed a little more during it. That's really all I gotta say. Six Scorched Roses, my first foyer into Cassandra, not Cassandra Gannon. Who is that? Carissa Broadbent. Um, it was okay. It's about a scientist and vampires, so it's going there. Cruel Winter with You, and like all the Amazon mistletoe romances, like Tessa Bailey and Olivia Dade. I don't know what Amazon did with that. They were all like under 100 pages. I don't think you can tell a good story well within 100 pages. It's going down there. I j- eh, it wasn't a good time. I'm not gonna go too into it, but like the whole little Amazon mistletoe romances are down there. I'm Jared, I'm 19, and I never learned how to read them. Next up, we got two Phantom of the Opera books. Count them two. The comic, it was good cush. Watch the movie or listen to the musical instead. You'll get the plot better, but the art was fun. I had a good time. I think it's weird trying to write about singing in books because, like, I don't know. Significantly worse. Phantom by Greer Rivers. We had all of the misrepresentation. We had sexual assault framed as sexiness, and I get it. It's a dark romance, but like you can write a good dark romance without. I don't know. Mm. Mm. I wish I was Jared, 19, and never frickin' learned how to read that book. I am an Agatha Christie virgin. No longer. I read Murder on the Orient Express. Did not see that coming, genuinely. I had never been spoiled for this book before, so surprise. That's crazy. I hadn't seen the movie, I hadn't read the book. It was a good time. Next, maybe Sylvie Mercedes is not for me. Bride of the Shadow King was okay. Vow of the Shadow King did not need to be there. This series did not need to be 3 books long. So Vow of the Shadow King gave me absolutely no head. Heart of the Shadow King was an avocado. Um, I was disappointed immensely. Like I wanted to love it. I promise I wanted to enjoy it, but it did not need to be 3 books. Something about like modern day fantasy romantasy books are like they don't need to be this many books. Like they just stretch them out and they don't need to. And maybe that's always been an issue in fantasy. But like, yeah, no, Love Light Farms. I read this for Christmas. It gave me no head. There was a lazy miscommunication, lazy breakup trope. I could have loved it. Everyone was like, it's a Hallmark book. You'll love it. I didn't. I didn't love it. What do you got to say about that? Am I hard to please? Sure. It was not a good time. You know what? Other people love it. I didn't. I don't like the miscommunication third act breakup. That's my thing. Ruined. People were like, this is like Pride and Prejudice but enemies to lovers. Not really. Pride and Prejudice one is already kind of enemies to lovers. This is more Bridgerton. It on page, it's a comic. It had a lot of, you know, which is fine. Um, I'm gonna put I'm gonna put it there for miscommunication. It was okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. If you liked Bridgerton, you'll probably love it. Bridgerton's okay to me, so you might have a really good time with it. The art was pretty. I loved the art style. You might like it. I didn't have a great time, but it was good. It was good. But why is it in? I was disappointed. Let's say that. Um, when you say you're gonna love it because it's Pride and Prejudice, and then it's not Pride and Prejudice, you know. Royal Royal Street Witch is about a witch in New Orleans who's like, I don't need no man, and then she gets a man. It didn't end happily, which I appreciate, and it had vampires. I walked away not wanting to kill myself, but it was okay. Um, Overall, not the best vampire book I read, not the worst. It's gonna go there. Scarecrow Queen. I buddy read this with someone. We live tweeted each other about it. We both hated it. My misery was laughed at by my friends. I never want to read the words overstuffed ever again. Ever. He's a scarecrow, so he okay. I'm just Next up, I read a bunch of Avatar books. This is representative of all of them. It was a good time. If you liked Avatar The Last Airbender, you'll have a good time with these comics. I have nothing more to say on the matter. It was pretty. It was a fun time. It carries on. It was fun. I will never forgive them for their Portrayal of Katara after the series, though. Oh my gosh. They did injustice to my girl. Psalm for the Wild Built and Prayer for the Crown Shy. I listen to these audiobooks in my car. They're both going in God and anime. They had me questioning my purpose in life and what brought me joy. And yes, I cried like a little baby when reading them. Oh my gosh. No one needs to look at me. I have feelings too, okay? Programmer's Aim is an 80-page novella. This book gave me no head. Um, I can remember nothing that happened in it. Again, I'm harder on short books, so it was eh. Also, I'm not into pro gaming or esports. I try. I'm not that cool, unfortunately. Peaches and Honey by Areta. Areta was really good. It discussed immortality and purposes and a woman who refused to give up on humanity. And romance played a little part into that. Not too much, but it was still a really good time. So it's a duology. I will be reading the second book. The princess saves herself in this one. It's Instagram poetry. I got nothing out of this. No feelings, no lessons. Good to screenshot and put on your story, though. So Starlights and Shadow, fantasy lesbians, um, written a little cringe. I wish it was written better. I have a whole thing. It was okay. It was all right. When SHTF, it's a survival book. I read it. I didn't have bad advice. It didn't change my life. Good reference guide. It wasn't like if you see a nuke, go running towards it. It's hard to rank instructional books, so it's just gonna go there. It was a good time. It was instructional though, so Rain and Ruined by J.D. Evans is my new standard for romantasy. Oh my gosh. She goes in depth. It's a different world. There's mutual respect that builds the romance. The world building is great. The magic system feels very Brandon Sanderson in depth esque. Mwah, 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 chef's kiss. It's so good. It's on KU. Please pick it up and read it. It's a good time. Even if you don't like romantasy, this was more fantasy than romantasy, but it's really good. And the romance, like I actually was rooting for it. It's a good time. Six Deaths of the Saint, 30 pages. You get what you get for 30 pages. I did cry. Whatever, it's there. It discusses a lot about the oppression of the church, and it's like Joan of Arc inspired. I did kind of cry at the end of it, but again, it was 30 pages. So it was good. And it has knights, so Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, also by Carissa Broadbent. It was an avocado. It was okay. It was a vampire book. Maybe Carissa Broadbent isn't for me because I also put this book down here. I think I liked Slaying the Vampire Conqueror better, so I'm just gonna like bump it above Six Scorched Roses. Um, it was okay. The romance was a little sudden, but again, it was a shorter book. You get what you get. The King Killing Queen. I borrowed this from my friend and I demanded the sequel, and she had the audacity to tell me it wasn't out yet. How dare she? It's really good. It feels very Arthurian, but a woman who's just trying to like outlive her siblings who want to kill her. It's a good time. I had a great time. I cried and I called her and screamed. So Sweet Inferno. I watched Natalie Megan from Weirdo Book Club read this, and I watched Reads with Rachel review it. That might influence my decision. It's going in It's an Avocado. Thanks. Not bad, not good. Lots of plot holes. I do like that the heroine was like older, um, and like not a wide-eyed innocent virgin. Like, oh my god, what do I do with that? It was a good time. Solid, but like not good. Like I had a fun time, but like it wasn't good. Sweetling by Essie Wendell. This is her answer for an HGTV. Oh my gosh, HGTV like romance house book. It's about an elf and a woman who build a house, and the house is magical and sentient. I enjoyed that. Granted, I enjoyed it less than Halfling and Ironling. Her next book is coming out later this year, and I'm so excited. But still a good time. I had a good time. Stone Hearts, Heart Song, Stone Hearts, whatever it's called. That's next. S.E. Wendell, shorter book. I had a good time. It's my comfort read. It's quick, it's short, it's easy. The female is the gargoyle in this one. I feel like we never get monster women. So, like, feminism. Party favors. Bisexual women discover each other. It's an avocado. Thanks. If you want, like, a little with two women, it's a time. You might like it. I didn't. I feel like there could have been more. Maybe I just need a relationship. Maybe like is not for me. Doesn't stop me from trying. Making of biblical womanhood. No words. It goes up here. It's the intersection of feminism and the Christian church and its oppression of women. It's really good. Give it a read if you're interested. It's a great time. Nonfiction. I learned a lot. My brain is so big now. Blackwater is a werewolf comic with high school boys, and it's gay. Um, the art is nice. It was a good time. I had fun. I read, I think, almost all of the Adventure Zone books. Again, stellar time, great comics. If you don't want to read 47,000 podcast episodes, this might be for you, but listen to the podcast. It's so good. It's a good time. Very D&D, so practice makes perfect. Another contemporary romance. I had a decent time with it. Um, it was cute. It was fun. I didn't cringe a ton. I don't remember a bunch about the end part. I don't remember there being a significant like miscommunication trope. I remember enjoying it. Let's just leave it there. I enjoyed it. The Prince of Prohibition. I wanted to love this. It gave me no head. The Fae did the thing with Jacob from Twilight where he's like, I've loved you since you were a baby. Weird. However, Fae in 1920s, I wanted to love it so bad. Kingpin of Camelot, Arthurian legend King Midas, written by the same person who wrote Love versus the Ooze Monster and Beast and whatever's on here. Decent time, okay time, not bad. In fact, it's in the same universe as Wicked Ugly Bad. It's gonna go here too. I'm not gonna reread it, but if you liked Once Upon a Time, that Disney show, you might like this. Okay, let's speed run the last ones. My throat is hurting. I've been sick. Pestilence. He's a man child. The main character's 18. Automatic no head. I'm so sorry for those of y'all that know me who told me to read it because you love Laura Thalessa. I'm so sorry. I couldn't. He's a man child. I'm so sorry. She changed him. She's 18 and it's her responsibility. This one's interesting because it's like an what is it, isekai, where the editor for a really bad book gets sucked into the world. It was fun. The author who also wrote these books didn't take it seriously, so it was hysterical. She also came out with the book that the editor from this book got sucked into. It's so fun. It's hysterical. If you just want a parody, it's a good time. Spookily yours. No head, no further comments. I'm sorry. Trust the Plan. It's a QAnon book. I learned a lot. It's a great reference point if you are interested in learning more about it. Um, it's freaking bats. Under the Oak Tree. The art was pretty. The plot didn't make much sense. It was pretty to look at, but I remember nothing about the story. It's an avocado, all right? Lower than that, Vampire's Bargain. The name sucked. The world building made no sense. Motivations made no sense. I wanted to like it so bad, and I just didn't. Viridian Priestess is Mandalorian self insert fanfiction, and the author owns up to it, and I, for one, am so here for it. It was a fun time. It discusses religious deconstruction, too. Wolf in the Garden. It was like 600 pages of contemporary. Your contemporary romance novel should not be more than like 350 pages. It was an avocado for the length and the way it dragged on alone. But like, if it was shorter, I probably would have liked it more. Women Don't Owe You Pretty is a book about feminism. Good Kush. I learned a lot, but I remember nothing about what I learned. So, did I really learn anything? It was good. It was a good intro crash course to like women and appearance. Good time. My last book, a Christmas book, wrapped with a bow. I had a good time. It was actually Hallmarky. I liked this way more than Love Light Farms with the stupid breakup trope. It was a good time. So that's my tier ranking for all the books I read in 2024. Yeah, that's it. That was all. I hope you had a good time. I hope you liked the Vine references. Have a good day and stay safe. I want to go die now. Bye.